A common complaint I get from both viewers and people I know of is that my reviews tend to last for ages and are cumbersome to sit through. You wouldn't be wrong, but that is how I like to structure my thoughts in general writing, which could give an explanation as to why everybody in high school always ignored me right up until it was time to write an essay. Rejoice, viewers, because for once in my life I'm going to take people's advice to heart and do exactly that. However, there is a catch to all of this. First and foremost, I can't review a game without derailing myself in the details on a style that I can call my own and not stop talking for all eternity. So I'm just gonna parody an actually competent reviewer style instead of finding one because laziness pays off in this woebegone world. I'm also going to complicate my life by reviewing a game with a convoluted enough story to make the whole thing more interesting but not too confusing that it is unwatchable. I hereby present you a half-hearted attempt at entertainment of this day and age. Hello everybody and welcome to the first and only episode of Zero Dignity, a show hosted by me, a complete waste of human life, my totally original nondescript desk for putting stuff on, and my laptop, which isn't a built PC because I am a moron who still values relationships over video games. And also because I'm too stupid to build one myself. How to start the review? Okay, I got it. A few nights ago, I found myself jacking into images of cartoon cannibalism, wishing I could find a girl kind enough to swallow me whole until I suddenly stopped dead in my tracks. Is there any way that I could possibly feel any more miserable? I asked myself immediately after realizing the horror of the atrocity I had just committed. That's when it hit me. Yes, it can always get worse and will always get worse. But a closely related thought that came to mind was that of a small game that I had played a long time ago called Lisa. Well, at the time I played it, it was called Lisa, but after its massive success, it sparked two sequels called Lisa the Painful and Lisa the Joyful, effectively creating a trilogy and making the original game's name redundant. So, of course, it was changed to Lisa the First. So, fuck it. Now that I've dropped the names of 3 games like millennials drop out of college, I might as well review them all. What is it about this game that can be so depressing? I hear you asking from the back of your head. First of all, fuck you for interrupting my train of thought, and second, the 3 games are extremely mature despite their innocuous appearance, but more on that for each game. Lisa the First is an exploration RPG in which we are introduced to the titular character of the series, Lisa Armstrong, who goes on fantastic adventures in a magical world because, who knows, a game needs to happen here and the cruel reality of Lisa's life wouldn't be much fun to play through. Yes, that's right, what's portrayed to be happening in the game isn't the truth, but rather the hallucinations and coping mechanisms that Lisa has developed in order to mentally escape Marty, her abusive shitbag of a father. The game is fairly simple with the way that the mechanics work. You have an inventory to store items, a hub world that connects worlds to others, you got items that you can give to NPCs to get other items to continue doing whatever the hell you're supposed to be doing, and you need to avoid enemies. Those fuckers aren't out to kill you as much as they are out to waste your fucking time since they send you back to the beginning of the puzzle whenever they touch you. Alright, so this game already reminds me of why I'm not too fond of RPGs. There's more movement than combat going on, I don't know where the fuck I'm supposed to go, and the most enjoyment I can get out of its mechanics is pushing rocks until they beg me to stop. But that isn't why the game is engaging. It has been compared to Yume Nikki, and rightfully so, since some of the environments you go through look as if though Vincent van Gogh had painted during an acid trip and are complicated to traverse. The combination of the two can be headache-inducing at times, but it seems to be deliberate, as it emphasizes how broken Lisa's mind is. This game thrives on subtlety to tell its story, and unlike other games whose entire premises are based entirely on being deep, this one does it without unloading gallons of obvious twists and turns directly to your face. Unless you're under 15, in which case most of the subtle imagery will likely go right over your head and straight into r/whoosh. In any case, the hints and imagery clearly point towards Marty being an alcoholic who abuses Lisa physically and mentally. And we're not just talking about the punch her in the gut kind of physical abuse that I love to laugh at, but the kind of physical abuse that leaves the abuser in jail, being the next in line to suffer from the same exact fate the minute he drops the soap. There's clear indications of this, as evidently pointed out by a certain phallic-looking man that keeps following Lisa around, a statue of a woman with a hole in its crotch that you need to shove a sword into to progress further, and the omnipresent hallucinations of Marty's face. Once you let that sink in, it sort of gets stale and boring. Taking into consideration that it isn't long, the entire game can be beaten in less than an hour provided that you have a firm understanding of intoxicated Van Gogh's brushstrokes. I'm willing to forgive it because not only is it free and more of a concept than a game itself, but because it is a setup for the next game. Also, if you want a good laugh, try hacking the game so that you're able to fly and talk to the hallucinations of Marty that would normally be out of reach. You might get a reaction from them that sets the tone for what the future of this story will look like. Moving on from that, we have Lisa the Painful, and holy shit does it live up to its name. Don't believe me? The very first thing that you see when you boot up the game is Lisa's corpse hanging from a noose, barely changed from the previous game, meaning that she was still a child by the time that she did this. Good on you, woman. I hope I have the courage someday. With Lisa out of the equation, we get to play as the next pincushion for torment in the Armstrong family, Brad, Lisa's older brother who gets the shit beat out of him during the intro. He returns home to Marty, who continues to be a contender for the best father of the year by throwing empty bottles of beer directly at his son's face. Brad goes upstairs, checks on his then non-Christmas ornament baby sister, and locks himself in his room to cry. Suck it up, you little bitch. If I made it through the crying to become another useless member of society, then so can you. Flash forward to the future, and Brad is now a retired martial artist master living living in a post-apocalyptic wasteland with a drug addiction. Well, talk about bad life decisions, but Brad's life isn't the only thing that's gone downhill. Remember that small chuckle from a few sentences ago when I said flash forward? Well, it's because the apocalyptic event that took the world by storm this time was the White Flash, an event which left humanity without women and the planet without much of a functioning ecosystem. That oddly specific targeting. Was the White Flash a mob of far-right women-hating American Caucasian males that caused the females to die from indecent exposure? Anyways, things are going downhill for humanity as without women, their chances of reproducing are basically null. Thank God. Until Brad finds a baby in the middle of the desert, proving that the theory of spontaneous generation might still apply in cases of human extinction. Brad adopts the baby and takes it home to raise it with his pals, whereupon they find out that indeed it is a girl. Some of the guys suggest giving the baby, which Brad decides to call Buddy, to the local perverted post-apocalyptic warlords of the wasteland in order to get rewarded. Brad refuses because of his daddy issues and raises the girl until she inevitably gets kidnapped, and then sets out to get his daughter back. So right from the get-go, a few things are already different. For starters, the game is no longer from a top-down view, but from a 2D platformer-like perspective, allowing for some interesting movement mechanics and puzzles that involve letting Brad fall flat on his face to move along, which never ceases to amuse. There's also combat now, similar to most RPGs, but with the exception of pressing the WASD keys to create combos for extra damage or different status effects. I really like this. I mean, it's more satisfying than just pressing a button to do a thing and watch your energy meter drag down. It breaks the usual formula of classic RPGs. You know what also beats the shit out of conventional RPGs? No grinding! Almost all of the encounters with enemies in Lisa the Painful are unique, and the experience that they drop is limited, creating a sense of an organic world instead of a linear plot from point A to point B with several clones of the same enemy standing in your way. And all of the enemies that do repeat drop little experience in order to prevent you from farming them. You know, this seems a little too suspiciously good. What the fuck are you up to, game? Are you gonna punish me to compensate for all of the good things that you bring to this world? Oh, you bet your ass it will. If punishing was hockey, then Lisa the Painful would be Wayne Gretzky with the amount of times it subverts expectations video games have for screwing you over. This game does not fuck around. There's plenty of ways that your party can suffer in any given situation. You can recruit party members to help you with your pure quest of stopping the only girl on the planet from getting splooged, and although each one of them is unique with their own abilities and fighting styles, they are all equally expendable. They can get kidnapped after you set up camp, outright be killed by a sexual deviant, or even get mauled by a giant contorted ball-sack shaped mutant. You never know with this game. Rather interestingly, you can sometimes pick who gets killed in some of these cases, which brings me to how important the element of choice is in this game. Unlike other pretentious games where your most significant choices only result in shit like, oh, this character hates you now, or you monster, this is the bad ending. With fake promises of emotional guilt, Lisa makes the weight of your actions fall bluntly on your shoulders and could even potentially change the way you play. And the best part about it, and I'm going off script here, is that it may even find a way to make the death of your teammate funny. A particularly sadistic clown-like warlord exemplifies this by making you choose between taking all of your items or taking one of your arms, and either one can be devastating since losing an arm can affect your combos. There is no easy way out either, because if there is an option that seems safe, it usually ends up killing one of your party members or doing both of the aforementioned bad options. If all that wasn't masochistic enough for you, there is an optional higher difficulty setting appropriately called Pain Mode, that only allows you to use save points once, making resource management even more important than in other games. Now, I'm the kind of person that's strong enough to shatter a glass with my bare hands after realizing I fucked something up, but somehow not strong enough to beat my newborn niece in an arm wrestling competition, so unless I had tried Pain Mode without noticing, I would have probably been able to complete it, but now that I'm actually trying, it's giving me a hard time to beat. Take that as you will for a warning about difficulty. Stop! Stop! Enough! I hear all of the weak, unprepared punching bags say from inside their protected pillow forts. If this is such a painful experience, then why would you keep going? Well, the answer to that question is very simple, actually. I keep going because I find human misery and agony very funny. This game has dark humor to go along with its dark story, and it's the kind that's fun to laugh at, but the more you think of the implications of the joke's meaning, the more distressing it gets. It may be fun to laugh at all of the weirdos, freaks, and predators with a newly found sexual orientation that this apocalypse has created, but after you remember that these could very well be realistic coping mechanisms of what is essentially the last generation of mankind with no hopes of salvation whose last moments will be spent murdering each other, then it all becomes depressing the more you find yourself laughing at it. But you'll still laugh, because Brad's reaction to all of this is nothing more than a stern, unamused face that doesn't give two shits about anything that just happened, who will then proceed to beat up whoever got in his way, putting the literal punch in punchline. Well, fuck, that would have been the perfect sentence to end the episode on, but I still have Lisa the Joyful to cover. Okay, since I quite like these games, I'm not gonna delve into spoiler territory, which pretty much encompasses the entirety of Lisa the Joyful, although let me say that there isn't much more comboing and party management as there is in Lisa the Painful for a reason. Trust me, that's as much as I can say without spoiling anything. This last game is a walking spoiler alert. Oh yeah, and if that wasn't enough Lisa for you, consider checking the fan games too, because those are of shockingly good quality as well. Seriously, you'll be hooked. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a weird and irresistible urge to murder my entire neighborhood while ranting about the powers of infinity. See ya! Flash forward